This is WCRN Weekend with your host, Pat Rice.
Welcome to another episode of WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830. On today's episode, we have the chairman and CEO of Fidelity Bank, Mr. Ed Manzi. Welcome to the show, Ed. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Hey, anytime. My pleasure. How did you begin your career in banking?
Well, I began my career in banking as a member of a CPA firm in Boston. Wolf & Company is a large regional firm that has a large practice in community banking. And so when I came out of college, I was an accounting major and went into the public accounting field and did a lot of audits of banks. And so after 4 years I got certified as a certified public accountant and worked in the industry for 4 years. And when I decided to move out of the public accounting field, I chose community banking. In fact, I went to work at a bank in Winthrop, the Winthrop Savings Bank, which was a former client at the time of Wolf & Company. So it was early exposure to the industry through the audit field.
What made you gain an interest within community banking?
Well, it's an interesting question. And what I found most intriguing early in my career was the opportunity to have an influence on a lot of different aspects of a business, as well as connect with adding value to the community that I lived and worked in. So, and the reason I make the first point is community banking, by definition, they're smaller banks. Mm-hmm. So like any small business, you don't have 17 layers of hierarchy and bureaucracy. So you do have the ability to have a more meaningful influence on the growth and success of the organization, and also by definition, the community bank industry, as I saw it then, and I would say it hasn't wavered at all. In fact, our commitment here is even more so, is intimately or integrally related to the success of the communities that it serves. So it's rewarding, it's challenging as well as rewarding, in a very holistic way. So I think the combination of those two things I thought were appealing. I like to tell people, as a finance guy growing up, I have an aptitude for finance and managing money and things like that. But I'm also a people person. I like to help people, and so in community banking, you get to put those two things together. You're helping people with their money. So it's really a real privilege I've had for the last almost 28 years to do that.
Absolutely. And could you tell us about how your journey to Fidelity?
Oh yeah, the career stops along the way. Sure. After Winthrop Savings Bank, I went into the community bank industry as the chief financial officer, and relatively young, very young, and ambitious, trying to make my way in the world. I pursued promotion opportunities pretty early in the career. So I stayed at Winthrop for 2 years and then moved to a bank in a larger bank, a little bit more complex bank in New Hampshire for a couple of years, and became president. Had an opportunity to become president of the Shirley Cooperative Bank in 1990. And that was a time when the industry was under a lot of pressure. That was before this most recent recession. That was the worst recession to hit Massachusetts in our lifetime.
Oh,
Banks
wow.
were failing, and so it was an interesting time for. I think I was 30 years old and became the CEO of one of the smallest banks in the state of Massachusetts. So it was a great challenge, a great learning opportunity, and also the start of my career as a chief executive. And
Perfect.
then from there, so I did that for 7 years. I guess to finish the story, we had a good run there. The bank strengthened and grew, and then I was recruited to become the CEO of Fidelity Cooperative Bank, which is our legal name, but Fidelity Bank in 1997. As the CEO at the time, there had a succession plan, and I joined that team and have been here ever since.
So you made Fidelity your home, and that's great to find a place where you're very comfortable with being with and helping out with it, and obviously you enjoy it and you like it there. How would you best describe Fidelity and the meaning behind the name Fidelity?
Well, I guess Fidelity Bank. It's important to recognize that Fidelity Bank has been in Worcester County and in central Massachusetts since 1888. So this is 130 years ago. local families and individuals got together to create this bank. And it's not at all in any way affiliated with Fidelity Investments. It's really a chapter right out of the Wonderful Life movie, where with the local focus, it started 130 years ago, and I guess the word fidelity, I can only assume this, but they chose the word fidelity as their name because they took great pride in their responsibilities to be trustworthy, honest, and be responsible for the caretaking of people's life savings and to give them good information and good advice about home mortgages and things at the time that were, honestly, from what I've heard and read over the years, back then, the reason they started banks like this is because the well-to-do people had access to commercial banks and that sort of thing, but the average American didn't have easy access to savings and credit. So it was, built to serve the local people. So I think they've had fidelity to that mission the entire time, and as I'm sure we'll talk about, we've expanded our services and our geographic region over that 130 years, but we've never wavered from that same commitment that those folks made back 130 years ago. We call it something different today. We call it our Life Design Promise, but it's really essentially the same.
Exactly. Fidelity Bank is the service to the middle class working people of America. And, I read that you guys prevented yourselves from being owned by investors. And I want to get into the life design topic as well. But could you just tell us a little bit about banks and investors? How did you guys prevent yourselves from being affiliated with an investor?
Well, it's really our charter. We're a mutual cooperative bank going back 130 years. So it's not so much that we prevented ourselves from it. We have decided to remain mutual. So mutual means that we're legally essentially owned by the depositors, the customers of the bank, kind of like a credit union. And we have stayed true to that because my board, the senior management team of the bank, believe that we can do the best job by focusing on the long-term best interests of our clients and our communities and our employees. And if there's a certain short-term focus that I think some stock banks have that would not be a good fit for what we're trying to do, we like the idea of staying mutual so we can keep the long-term best. We think it's a good business model anyway. We think there's a lot of successful public companies that think long-term.
Absolutely.
But for us, we haven't needed to raise capital that way, and we'd like to stay mutual as long as we possibly can.
Definitely, and I think that's a great way of thinking. I think it's a great business model as well. It definitely serves for the people in the community. We have to take a quick break. We've been talking to Ed Manzi, the CEO and chairman of Fidelity Bank, about the beginnings of Fidelity Bank and his career. And in our next segment, we're going to talk about how Fidelity Bank can not just help you, but also your business. You've been listening to WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830.
Welcome to WCRN Weekend and your host, Pat Rice.
And we return. We've been talking with Ed Manzi, the CEO and chairman of Fidelity Bank, about the start of his journey and career into banking, along with the start of Fidelity Bank. In this segment, we're going to touch upon about how Fidelity Bank just doesn't help you and your business, but also the community and its life design program. And now this past spring at Fidelity's annual meeting, Fidelity announced that they grew by 5%, reaching total assets of $819 million, and you guys also paid out more than $350,000 through your life design program, which I am correct. You created the life design program.
Yeah, it's something exclusive to Fidelity Bank, and we like to call it our life design brand promise. You think about banking, the core products and services of every bank and credit union is essentially the same. Credit unions and more banks offer checking accounts, savings accounts, mortgages, commercial loans, lines of credit, deposit accounts. It's the services, no one's inventing something new, ATMs. So what makes us unique is the life design promise is that we're going to use our expertise, our knowledge, our hearts, if you will, to help our clients make good decisions about their money. In fact, we have a shorthand way of saying what the Life Design Promise is all about. It's about giving our clients access to caring people who use a caring approach and offer caring solutions to our clients that are in their best interests, not just the banks. Now, in a day and age where people are very cynical about a lot of different businesses and organizations, and, particularly after the last financial crisis about financial institutions, we find that, it's not, what I'm saying to you, it's not rocket science, right? It's just trying to treat people the way you want to be treated and do what's right by them. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't think it was that rare, but it's really powerful. It is really. That's why. I know we had 5% growth in 2017, but that's on top of 25%. We've grown about 50% in the last 4 years alone, and done over $1 billion of new loans. That's basically proving to ourselves that the Life Design Promise has a lot of traction. That clients are voting with their feet and they're choosing Fidelity Bank.
Absolutely, and that's incredible. If I was to sit down with you or one of your life design difference professionals, what kind of advice or support would they lend me in making better financial decisions with my money?
Well, I think the key is the process they go through. We talked about a caring approach. Mm-hmm. So we take the time to discover, design, and then deliver things that are specific to you. The discovery part is probably, if I had to pick one that's the most important, it's taking the time to understand the way you live your life, what your goals are, what your challenges are. Because, again, in my experience, most banks and most credit union employees are trained to sell the next widget. Yeah. And what we're trying to do is figure out what you need and what you want. So that takes time. So we take not a lot of time. It takes an educated, caring employee to ask the right questions. And then with the information they have, they take the time to design the right options. And oftentimes we don't just give you one choice, but we say to you, here's what I would, based on what you've told me, here's what I think the best choice is, but here are a couple of other options for you to consider. And then when you decide, it's very collaborative, we deliver it in a very cost-effective and seamless way, because people get confused with banking. One thing about America, it's a capitalist society, mm-hmm. but we're not training a lot of people coming out of high school and college on how to manage money and make good financial decisions. So the idea of giving good advice and then helping implement the advice, that is so valuable. It is so valuable.
And that brings up another question of mine. How do you feel about the financial knowledge within the average American? Like you mentioned, not too many coming out of high school and college may know too much about how to handle their money or how banking works. It's kind of a crisis in our society with all the debt.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make. And I've been doing this for a while now, and I would say that problem, you would think as a society got more educated and more affluent, the problem would have gotten smaller. But honestly, I can't say that it has. I think it's at least the same, if not worse, than it was 25, 30 years ago. And partly because I think the world's gotten more complex, so it's hard to keep up with all the options and all the knowledge required to make good decisions. But I think part of it is, as you point out, the core training and education in America, they're not. That's not a. And I think it should be taught as a core curriculum in the elementary and high school, so that whether you go to college or not, you understand these things. And then finally, the debt culture that we live in, people are sold financial decisions based on the monthly payment rather than a longer-term plan. So there's a lot of things feeding it, and that's why we stay committed. I like to say that while the world's changing rapidly, and you know this as well as anybody, it's changing more rapidly than it ever has. And it's just going to accelerate. I like to say, although that's true, the key to our success is focusing on those things that never change. People will always value working with someone who takes the time to understand their needs and put their interests first. That, I don't care how sophisticated technology gets or how fast the world's moving. At the end of the day, that differentiator, the Life Design Promise, will always be valuable. In fact, I think because of the lack of financial sophistication, that it's even more valuable what we offer than most other banks.
Right on. I agree. Like you mentioned, no matter how fast technology gets and how fast the world turns, people always are going to want someone that treats them with respect and understands their situation, because let's say no matter how fast you get it done, if you're not understanding or truly respecting the other person's values or wants, then in the end you're essentially failing.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories or examples is sometimes the right advice is not to say no. Right? So they want a loan, they want to buy a house or a car or grow the business. It's easy. It's easier. We've read a lot about this. Some banks pay commissions to people for selling stuff and whatever, and so there's a lot of incentives to say yes. But if in the long run, if it's not the best thing for that client to say yes, we take the time to say no, but we explain why and what they have to do to get to yes. Again, it might sound kind of hokey, but we really do put our heart and our head together. It's not just a money making machine. We believe that if you do the right thing for the client, if you do the right thing for the community, you do the right thing for the employee, everyone is going to be better off, and the bank will make plenty of money. So I think it's been working pretty well for us.
Exactly. And you mentioned how sometimes you need to say no and maybe turn the person to some other options and also explain why. So that brings up to mind, if I was a local commercial business, what kind of loan programs could Fidelity and you guys offer me?
Oh, great question. Yeah, so we are full-service commercial bank today. More than half of our bank, if I go back to the 1888 years, it was a bank that was built on consumer banking.
Yeah.
Now we have a full suite of consumer and mortgages, but we also have a full-service commercial bank. So literally everything that a Worcester County bank or a Worcester business would need, we have. We do commercial real estate loans for investor purposes. We do commercial real estate for owner-occupied, industrial buildings, retail, manufacturing. We financed the Fidelity Bank Worcester Ice Center in Worcester. We had major roles in the T&G building conversion a few years back. So a lot of things that are going on in City Square. So we do big loans, we do lines of credit, we do construction loans. Our on a cash management basis, we have all the modern technology that you need to manage your money and pay bills and move money around. There's really nothing there's no product. As I said earlier, we have all the products and services that any bank has. So if there's a business, a growing business, an established business, an expanding business that is listening to us speak, and they like the idea of working with someone who lives this life design promise, they can rest assured that there's not a product and service that we can't do for a locally based business like that.
We have to take a short break, but once we get back, we will continue our conversation with Ed Manzi about the Life Design Program, how Fidelity Bank has support and helped communities in the surrounding areas, along with mental health in our society. You've been listening to WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830.
You're listening to WCRN Weekend. Once again, here's your host, Pat Rice.
And we return. In our last segment, we continued our discussion with Ed Manzi, the CEO and chairman of Fidelity Bank, about his life design program in which he helped create for the bank, along with asking questions on how Fidelity Bank could help me, you, and your business. In this segment, we are going to continue to discuss about the Life Design Program, what Fidelity Bank has done for downtown Worcester, along with mental health and the future of Fidelity Bank. Going back to your Life Design Program, you guys have connected with several communities. Could you tell us about the organizations and communities you've helped to raise money for? I know you mentioned the Fidelity Bank Worcester Ice Center and how you guys are also involved with Worcester's downtown area.
Yeah, so we have the core business of lending money and providing credit into the growing Worcester area. So I gave you some examples of that. But there's also the philanthropic giving. You mentioned the Life Design Community Dividend. That's our philanthropic budget of $350,000 to over 200 local organizations. Mm-hmm. I think about 40 of them are right here in Worcester. And it ranges I could just rattle off a few. You got the Boys and Girls Club, the Holy Name, Worcester Community Action Council, the Art Museum, the Ecotarium, the YWCA, the Chamber. The list goes on and on. So it's money. We give a lot of time as volunteers from the bank that are encouraged to put their time into volunteering for these nonprofits. And probably the one it would be important to share with you and the listeners, our number one philanthropic cause is an organization called the Shine Initiative, which we championed the beginning of 14 years ago. And its mission is to shine a light on mental health conditions in children, adolescents, and young adults, so that we can eliminate the stigma associated with it. To really, in fact, I don't even like the word stigma anymore. We want to end the discrimination that people suffer because of their mental health conditions. Ultimately, let the world recognize that mental health conditions in children, young adults, and adolescents is a mainstream health issue, just like diabetes or any other issue. And we have had an amazing run here. We have the signature program is the student wellness advisory teams that are embedded in these schools, and we had as of the end of last year we had 14 SWAT programs, we call them, and most recently the city of Worcester, the entire public school system signed up. So I think there are 14 separate schools in Worcester. If I may have the number wrong,
Wow. Oh, that's
they're
wonderful.
all going to come online with a SWAT program. Within a year, we're going to have 40 SWAT programs throughout central Massachusetts. Amazing.
And you're right, mental health is a huge problem nowadays, and at times I think technology doesn't help with that, and let alone even mention substance abuse. There's so much that goes into mental health issues in our country, so it's great to have, a local community business really help out the community. I know a quick thing is you have the Frosty Flyer truck, which also gives out ice cream for the summertime. That's great for not just kids, but for the whole family. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's kind of a fun thing that we did to help, as a living, breathing example of our commitment to improving the lives in a small way of the communities we serve. So we bring that to all kinds of local municipal events, and whether it's the Leominster Downtown Festival or the dragon races they had at Quinsigamon last year. We show up randomly at local fire departments and police stations. We go to businesses that are clients of ours and walk, just surprise them with the ice cream truck, and it's just free goodies, and who doesn't like ice cream, right? So
exactly,
it's good. It's goodwill. It's just building goodwill in a fun and not I would say not very typical bank way, right? How many banks have that? How many banks I don't have a heart as a logo? Who talk about the word? I mean, we don't even, the word caring is the most common word in our mission statement and vision statement. It's something that we really mean it. We work hard to make this place a special place.
Yeah, and most banks, the best thing you might get will be a lollipop that's on the the desk when you walk in, or sometimes they have the dog bones. But that's great. Will we see the Frosty Flyer truck this upcoming summer?
Absolutely. Yeah, there was it's funny. You wouldn't be surprised, right? The demand is high, so we hire a summer intern to drive the truck. That's his job.
Oh wow. That's an awesome job. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And once again, giving back to the community. What is the future of Fidelity Bank? And are there any future fundraising events our audience can attend to?
Well, I guess I'll answer the second question first. If people want to mark their calendar out far enough in advance, the Shine Initiative's annual Keep Your Mind Open fundraising gala is on October 18th at the Mechanics Hall. It's a evening affair. We have great speakers and a lot of fun, good food, and it's a good event. So keep your eyes open for that. As far as the future of Fidelity Bank, it's at one level it's really simple. We like to think of ourselves as a purpose-driven organization, and the reason we exist, it goes back 130 years ago. We want to bring the value of this life design promise to as many people as we can: families, individuals, businesses, municipalities, nonprofits. So we're going to keep growing, but we're growing not for the sake of growing, not for someone's ego or financial reward, but because we think it's really meaningful work. And we talk about in America to help people make these good decisions about their money. It inspires us every day. We have an amazing group of board members and members of the bank team, some of the most caring people I've ever worked with. I like to say I can make this life design promise on a radio show like this, but I cannot keep it alone. I need the hearts and minds of a lot of people, and I'm so privileged and thankful and grateful to work with these folks that bring it to life. So I would say the long run is the future of community banking is bright, and Fidelity Bank is bright. So we're going to keep on moving forward the way we have.
Perfect. And On the last note, where and how can people discover more about Fidelity Bank?
Our website is fidelitybankonline.com. I think that's a great place to start. You can go to we have a Facebook presence at Fidelity Bank MA. We also post a lot on LinkedIn, and we're soon to have 12 local bank offices throughout Central Mass, ranging from as far north as Winchendon to as far southeast as Millbury, and a whole bunch in between. So there's a lot of convenient physical locations, and we have all of our team is available 24/7 with the internet and the modern, like I said, all the modern technology. So we can make it really easy for someone to learn more about us. I would say that if you give us a try, you won't be disappointed.
That's terrific. It seems like you're doing banking right if you're going through Fidelity. Ed, I want to thank you for coming on to my show today. It was a pleasure speaking with you about Fidelity and the future of it.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate your time, Pat, and it's a pleasure being on your show.
Hey, thank you. Have a great day, Ed. That was the CEO and chairman of Fidelity Bank, Ed Manzi, and this has been another episode of WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830. We'll catch you next Sunday.
This has been WCRN Weekend and your host, Pat Rice.